President Donald Trump is reportedly considering whether to remove FBI Director Kash Patel from his position, a move that could unfold within the next few months, according to a Tuesday report from MS Now. Welcome viewers to my channel. Please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. The outlet based its story on conversations with 3 individuals familiar with internal discussions, all of whom insisted on anonymity so they could speak candidly about the sensitive matter. Their claims suggest that behind the scenes, tension has been rising between Patel and senior White House officials. In response to the report, White House spokeswoman Abigail Jackson issued a firm and polished statement meant to counter any perception of internal conflict. She emphasized the president's confidence in his administration, describing it as the most capable team ever assembled. While unpredictability was a constant in the administration, the evidence they had gathered suggested Patel was indeed on thin ice. Their sources, all deeply familiar with internal conversations, believed Trump was considering replacing him before the year's end. There was even speculation about a successor, Andrew Bailey, the former Attorney General of Missouri, who had recently stepped into the role of co-deputy FBI director. Bailey was known for his strict, hardline approach and his unwavering loyalty to the administration's agenda. He now shared his deputy role with Dan Bongino, a former Secret Service agent and outspoken conservative commentator, whose presence in the FBI leadership stunned many traditionalists but energized Trump loyalists. Delanian's words landed like stones thrown into a still pond, sending ripples everywhere. The idea that Patel's days were numbered was no longer a rumor whispered in dim hallways. It was a possibility acknowledged on national television. Yet every detail revealed raised new questions rather than answering old ones. Was Trump truly frustrated with Patel, or was the leak an attempt by rivals to weaken him? Were the controversies about the government jet and the SWAT team incidents grounds for dismissal, or merely excuses? Was the administration genuinely united behind Patel, or were the statements from Jackson and Leavitt strategically crafted illusions meant to maintain stability until a replacement could be unveiled? Inside the FBI, the atmosphere shifted immediately. Senior agents exchanged uneasy looks, each quietly assessing how a sudden leadership change might alter their missions, their priorities, their futures. The Bureau had endured many turbulent eras, but the possibility of yet another abrupt shakeup struck many as both exhausting and destabilizing. Jackson highlighted Patel's importance within that team, portraying him as someone working relentlessly to rebuild trust in the FBI and carry out the president's vision. Her remarks appeared aimed at downplaying the idea that Patel's job was in jeopardy. A second, even more dismissive response soon followed. White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt posted on social media that President Trump laughed when he heard the report and brushed it off as fake news, continuing the administration's long-standing habit of publicly rejecting unsourced or negative reporting. Her message suggested that Trump considered the rumor baseless, though it did not directly address whether any private discussions had taken place. Shortly after MS Now released the story, anchor Katie Tur interviewed Ken Delanian, one of its authors and the network's correspondent focused on justice and intelligence. Tur summarized the key claims of the report on air, stating that Patel might soon be removed from his role due to growing dissatisfaction inside the White House. According to the sources, Trump and several top aides had become frustrated with a series of controversies surrounding Patel, including allegations that he used a government aircraft for a personal trip to visit his girlfriend and arranged for a tactical team to serve as her security detail. These episodes reportedly generated headlines the administration found embarrassing. Tur then turned to Delanian, asking him to elaborate. Delanian began cautiously, noting that with Trump's personnel decisions, there is always uncertainty, because he frequently changes direction or makes decisions abruptly. Still, Delanian said MS Now's reporting showed a clear pattern. Patel's standing within the administration had weakened significantly. He explained that their sources believed Trump was seriously considering appointing a replacement by the end of the year. One leading candidate mentioned was Andrew Bailey, the former Attorney General of Missouri, who had recently stepped into the role of co-deputy FBI director. Bailey had been sharing those responsibilities with Dan Bongino, a prominent conservative commentator and former Secret Service agent who also held a senior leadership position within the Bureau. Delanian's comments suggested that internal discussions about Patel's future had been happening for some time, even if the administration was denying them publicly. The uncertainty surrounding Patel's role, combined with the administration's conflicting responses, created an atmosphere in which it was difficult to determine what might happen next. Although official spokespeople insisted everything was stable, the leaked concerns from insiders painted a picture of ongoing tensions and potential shakeups within one of the government's most powerful agencies. The first whispers did not arrive with thunder or spectacle. They drifted quietly through the corridors of Washington, carried by aides who lowered their voices and journalists who sharpened their curiosity like blades. It began as so many political storms do: an unfinished sentence, a suspicious pause, a look exchanged between two officials who refused to explain what they were thinking. But by the time MS Now published its report, the whispers had already swelled into something far louder, something with the weight to shake the highest levels of government. The report was simple but explosive. President Donald Trump was privately considering whether to dismiss FBI Director Kash Patel within the next several months. It was the kind of revelation that, once spoken aloud, could not be stuffed back into silence. DC reacted instantly. Phones buzzed. Staffers who thought they were off duty abruptly found themselves summoned back into the swirl. Politicians who insisted they knew nothing nevertheless exchanged messages with people who also knew nothing, all trying to determine who had said what, to whom, and why. MS Now claimed to have spoken with 3 individuals with direct knowledge of the internal conversations. Their anonymity only heightened the tension. Anonymous sources in Washington were as common as streetlights, yet they gained a special kind of authority when the subject involved the White House and the FBI, 2 institutions that, when brought into the same sentence, rarely belonged there for peaceful reasons. Even before the anchors finished reading the report, reporters scrambled for statements from the White House. The first to respond was Abigail Jackson, the ever-composed spokeswoman whose voice often acted as a shield between the administration and a ravenous press corps. She sent out a statement that felt polished, rehearsed, and unmistakably defensive. Jackson insisted that President Trump had assembled the most talented administration in American history, a phrase critics like to mock but supporters treated as gospel. She praised Patel explicitly, calling him a critical member of the president's team, a man who was working tirelessly to restore integrity to the FBI. Her tone was firm, constructed to project unity, loyalty, and unwavering confidence. But Washington had heard similar language before, and it usually arrived shortly before someone's resignation letter. Minutes later, the second official response emerged, this time from Caroline Leavitt, the White House press secretary, whose style was sharper, quicker, and designed for social media combat. She posted that the president had laughed when he heard the report, dismissing it as fake news without hesitation. The phrase echoed through every political conversation like a bell struck too often. Trump's laughter was meant to undermine the report's seriousness, to convey that the story was not only wrong but absurd. Yet seasoned observers of the administration had seen this strategy before. Public dismissal did not always match private frustration. While the White House worked to quash the rumor, MS Now continued pushing forward. Katie Tur, the network's seasoned anchor who had long earned a reputation for asking questions others avoided, went on air moments after the story broke. She explained the situation with the clarity of someone who had seen political drama unfold many times before, yet with the urgency of a story that could reshape federal law enforcement. She summarized the core of the report. Patel's job might be slipping out from beneath him. Sources claimed the president and his senior aides had grown weary of the controversies trailing him like shadows, controversies that were becoming harder to ignore. There had been stories, persistent ones, about Patel using a government aircraft for a personal trip to visit his girlfriend. Even more troubling were allegations that he had arranged for a tactical FBI unit to accompany him as if he were some endangered dignitary rather than a high-ranking official on an unofficial trip. These details had not faded away quietly. Instead, they resurfaced repeatedly, echoing through headlines that the administration found increasingly embarrassing. Tur invited Ken Delanian, one of the report's authors, to elaborate. His face appeared on the screen with the seriousness of a man who understood the sensitivity of the subject. He began cautiously reminding viewers that when it came to Trump's personnel decisions, nothing was ever certain until it happened, and sometimes not even Patel had supporters within the agency who felt he had tried, in his own way, to navigate impossible political demands. Others believed his actions, particularly the personal use of government resources, had become untenable. Tension grew beneath the polite professionalism the Bureau was known for, as though the walls themselves sensed what was coming.